Or was excited how they look after this flight because
A little worn out.
Или бодрые такие, веселые, увидели американцев, здравствуйте, обниматься.
is it was too many people to meet them or it was casual like or how
Oh, it was. They landed on a Saturday. We didn't get over there until Sunday.
Они в субботу прилетели, как бы, так сказать, но мы
So they had everything pretty well.
как бы, так сказать, увидели только воскресенье, как говорится, сами.
ну, то есть
они,
немножко
да. It means they have some rest before they show
Well,
the public.
oh yeah, it was the next day.
На следующий день.
Also, there's an interesting sidebar.
В газетах сразу напечатали об этом событии в американских,
Is
да?
it was some newspaper publication or it was an announcement of this event? You don't remember?
Was two. There were aviation journals of the time. Oh, careful.
Вот прям, знаешь, вот так сядь, и вот, давай, садись сюда. Все, и прям, все, можно рассказывать.
Oh, you're on the leg of the.
Кстати, можно рассказать, вот хорошо. Вот давай, вот, то есть, по поводу того, во сколько вам было лет?
How old was you then this event happened?
Well, I was 9.5. I was born in January of 28, and the occasion that we're talking about occurred in June of 1937. So that made me just 9.5 years old. And as a youngster, along about 5 or 6 years of age, I got bit by the aviation bug. So I was an avid model builder by the time I was 8 or 9. And that's really how I understood what was occurring, because there had been some very minor publications about what was transpiring, newspapers mostly. And as I recall, their intention was to fly to land at San Francisco, but the weather and fuel shortage kept them from getting that far. So as a result, they were going to land at Portland, but there were so many people on the ground that his grandfather decided he didn't want to land there. So the story goes. So they went across the river to Pearson Field, which is an Army air base at the time, which is Vancouver. That's Washington, the Columbia River there. And the site I was going to tell you was that it happened that freshly minted General Marshall was the commander of the field. That's the Marshal of the Marshall Plan. And so he was probably about the second or third guy on the spot. He drove all the way across the Army's golf course to meet the airplane. And that was the Saturday. And we lived in South Seattle, actually Burien, it's the south part of Seattle, which is roughly 100 miles away. But we had learned that they were there, so I talked my dad into taking me down there. And so we arrived the next morning. And they had everything arranged by then. The airplane was all cordoned off, and there were a lot of people there, newspaper, photographers, and what have you. And we didn't get a chance to talk to the crew, but we could see them. They were being interviewed by reporters. But the airplane was in pretty good shape. As I remember, they measured the fuel that was left. It was 11 gallons. So it was a good thing they didn't continue towards San Francisco, so they wouldn't have made it. And I remember the airplane in particular was huge for a single-engine aircraft. Had an immense wing on it, and the wings were painted red for some reason or other, but the body was the fuselage was silver, which made the wings look even bigger. You know, I've forgotten the wingspan was close to 100 feet. Was it? Yeah. So that's about the extent of my memory. Of course, none of us knew anything about Russia, particular. You know, we just knew that they were Russians, and I didn't know what a Russian looked like at the time. So it was interesting. I went home and was able to build a kind of a half-baked replica of the model of the airplane that, of course, long since been gone. But it was exciting for a 9-year-old, especially one interested in aviation. So.
Good to know. How about the pilots? Is it they have maybe some some private conversation with pilots, or just this is the first intercontinental flight. It was probably for.
Well, what I remember, Pearson was an Army base, and there was some aircraft activity there. And I'm sure that the Army people, had conversations with them through interpreters or whatever. But the general public, we didn't get a chance to get that close. They had the airplane secured so nobody could bother it. The reason that his grandfather didn't want to land at Portland, because there were so many people there. He remembered what they did to Lindbergh's airplane when he landed in Le Bourget. They damn near tore it apart. The mob. People were cutting pieces of fabric off and what have you. He didn't want to have to put up with that. That much I remember from news articles came out, shortly afterward. It was kind of a quasi-secret effort. There wasn't a lot of pre-information. The only reason I knew about it was that there was an aviation journal that mentioned the possibilities that they were preparing. As I recall, they did quite a bit of long-distance work with the airplane besides that flight. Mm-hmm. And some of that had been published beforehand. And that was how we had an idea of what was transpiring. They didn't make it public when they left, when they took off. They didn't even communicate with anybody until they got over Canada. Mm-hmm. So that was the first contact. People were, trying to figure out where they were, and that was by radio. Canadians, and the Canadians then let people in the States know that where they were and where they were headed. That's how they knew they were headed for San Francisco, but couldn't make it because of the weather and the fuel shortage. They were in the air for something like 60 some hours.
Mm-hmm. 63 hours.
Yeah. And cold all the way. No air conditioning, no altitude control or anything. I can imagine their teeth were chattering.
Yeah, this is brave.
Well, they have to worry about fuel, water and the fuel freezing too. And they have the additives that we have today to keep that from happening. So it was for its time, it was an adventure, that's for sure. And it would have been interesting to be able to talk to them, but they weren't about to let the general public get that close.
And almost from that time you are in aviation.
Yeah,
Since now. And still flying.
I started building models at about age 5 or 6. And I haven't stopped. They just got bigger.
What's the difference between the man, when the kid and the man? The toys become bigger.
You notice what we have on the top of the hanger? It says toy box.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a great life. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
And you're still flying.
Still
The
flying.
most important question.
Yeah.
I mean, just jumping into the airplane and
Well, I don't get in quite as agilely as I used to, but I still get in.
good.
I have noticed that I can't get into the antiques quite as well as I used to. I have 2 artificial knees now, and that kind of slows me down a little bit. But we can get in and out of this one pretty well.
Сюда отвечай. Нужно по глазам, а то... Если что, это дело вступил.
Ну, конечно.
Well, but you were flying the pretty speed airplanes.
Yeah, they're high performance. This one's, well, cook along at 150, 160 miles an hour. It'll hit 200 if you want to push it. The other one will be faster, of course, and more complex. It has a controllable pitch prop and retractable landing gear that this doesn't. So.
Did you have a chance to fly any of Russian aircraft at all?
No, unfortunately. Well, I guess I've flown a P-40, which was lend-lease to Russia, along with the Air Cobra. I think you got some Billy Mitchells too, didn't you? B-25s?
A few of them.
Yeah. So I guess indirectly, that's not a Russian aircraft, but it was used by Russia. So yeah, yeah. The P-40 is a nice airplane.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. Yeah.
We send you.
Yeah, if you're able to, I'd appreciate it. Yeah. My wife would. She said she couldn't quite understand what it was we were going to be doing.
Well,
You will say, there is no Leonardo DiCaprio available today, and they asked me to replace him.
Right.
Movie actor.
Well, let's see. How old would your grandfather have been at that point in time?
he will be 100. Well, in 2014, he will be 110 years old.